Good morning and welcome to Football League World TV. My name is Ned Holmes and this is another debate show. This morning I'm joined by my Football League World colleague Billy Mulley to discuss the best three EFL signings so far this month. How are you doing this morning, Billy?
Yeah, doing well, thank you. You've given me a difficult task today, trying to narrow down all these signings because there are some really good bits of business that have been done all across the three divisions so far. So yeah, it's going to be a good discussion, and I'm sure that there's definitely different opinions out there because there just has been so many good bits of business so far.
Yeah, we should certainly state that this is only our opinion. You know, if we don't include any of the signings your clubs have made, please don't give us pelters for that bit, because I'm sure there's a lot of fantastic signings out there, but we could only pick three. Before we get started, then just a reminder, as ever, please do like and share the video. Subscribe to Football League World TV on YouTube and let us know your thoughts in the comments. Well, Billy, 8 days left of the January transfer window. It's usually the sort of final 8 to 10 days that are the busiest, but it's fair to say there's been a lot of business done already across the EFL. So we tasked you on a cold Monday morning with the enjoyable job of picking out the best three. What I understand you've done, you've slimmed it down in each division to the top three. You're going to sort of give us the third and the second before going into a bit more detail on sort of the top pick. But before you do that, I guess just if you give us a bit of criteria on what you were looking for when you made your decision.
Yeah, as difficult as it was sort of selecting each individual player and giving a reasoning behind that, it's also the criteria is quite difficult to pin down because there are players that have gone in already and have made that sort of instant impact, whilst there are sort of other additions that haven't really had the time to make an impact so far. So, yeah, I think it's looking at sort of the potential for development during sort of January until the end of the season. Also looking at, I guess, where the clubs are currently at and their sort of need of addressing a certain position and whether they've done that successfully. I guess cost does have to come into play with some of them, but there are a lot of loan additions that are discussed here. And sort of it's that general potential that I think I've honed in on, the potential for this player to go on and have a really big impact in what remains of the season. Of course, you look at the teams competing at the top end of the division. Can they make that sort of big impact as the rest of the season goes on? You also look at teams near the bottom end of the division and sort of in dire need of a particular addition and sort of going in on that way as well. So yeah, it's difficult to sort of narrow down what the criteria is, and I think judged by my decisions, there's a lot of different reasonings behind each individual.
Absolutely fair enough. Well, just a reminder then to anyone watching either live or on a replay of the broadcast, do let us know in the comments how impressed you've been with the EFL signings your club made this month, or if there's been other signings that you're particularly jealous of. Billy, as I say, we're going to run through sort of one division at a time. We'll start in the Championship. Who's the best signing so far for you, and which players came close?
I think for me, Cameron Archer. I think we saw a glimpse of what he could do yesterday against Sunderland. I think looking at where Middlesbrough are in the division, it's a very competitive run-in terms of the top six race. And I think it represents a significant coup, being able to sign a player as gifted and a player as highly sought after as Cameron Archer was. Of course, a lot of teams wanting his signature, and it was Middlesbrough that eventually secured his signing. I think ultimately he's a player that could make a massive difference. You sort of play him alongside Chuba Akpom, who's been brilliant this season, and his ability to bring others into play could be the beginning of a fantastic partnership between them two. We also sort of seen him that we can operate out wide as a wider forward and be somebody that can carve out opportunities and use his pace to really cause havoc in the Championship. So for me, Cameron Archer is a player that you talk about difference makers, and I think he's the kind of player that could make a big impact at the top end of the Championship. And you know, it's a completely new project under Michael Carrick. Lots of players have taken it taken to it very well. A lot of young players have taken to it very well. So I think that Cameron Archer is a player that could really, really make a significant impact, but also he could really develop under Michael Carrick. And I think that's my reasoning behind why I think Archer so far is the best Championship signing.
Yeah, I mean, I guess every year we see quite a similar thing in terms of in the Championship. There's always one or two Premier League strikers, young Premier League strikers often, that sort of all the clubs seem to be chasing because, particularly the top Championship teams looking for a goal scorer. Obviously, Archer impressed at North End last season, 7 goals in 20 games. And he's really been the one in the past 2 windows that everyone has seemed to be up after. Billy, you talked about him being a difference maker in the promotion race this year on a wider sort of level. I mean, I think we all expected, given Michael Carrick came in midway through the season, this isn't his squad, that perhaps Borough would be sort of big spenders this month. That's not really materialised. It's been quieter. Do you think it shows a real sort of a positive change in their approach to the transfer market from being a slightly more scattergun in the past, that while Carrick's only made sort of, they've only brought in 1 player so far that we're picking out as the best signing of the month. And it's also sort of, really filled the need that they had there.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to sum it. I think looking at what they needed to do in the January transfer window, it hasn't been too much. And I think that's sort of credit to sort of even Chris Wilder for the squad he created. I know things didn't turn out the way he would have hoped, but I think ultimately he assembled a squad that's good enough to go on and do things this season. I think Michael Carrick's he's been brilliant, but I don't think his job has been too difficult in terms of recruitment. I think, as I mentioned there, he has the squad there. It's just sort of adapting to his style of play, which to me hasn't been too. He hasn't really ripped up the playbook as such. It's been sort of more of a gradual change and building on what they've done well. So I think naturally that created a need for not necessarily going gun-ho in the transfer window. It's sort of filling, as you said, sort of a couple of spaces in the squad. And I think they've done that very, very well with Cameron Archer. And I think the fact that it wasn't expected to be such a busy transfer window has meant that they can go, they can push harder for the targets. And I think that's what we've seen. And I think that's why Middlesbrough have won that race, because they've obviously done the groundwork. They've done the scouting, and ultimately they've secured the signing of a player that could, as we've mentioned before, make a real big difference.
Yeah, certainly an exciting addition for Borough, and we'll see sort of how that plays out as the season goes on. Just before we move on to League Two, then, Billy, who ran Cameron Archer close?
Yep, I had 2 names, and even narrowing it to 2 names after Archer was very difficult, and Reda Kadra was my second place. I think, of course, it didn't really work out at Sheffield United. I think Sheffield United obviously have an abundance of talent in attacking positions, and ultimately he just fell victim of not playing too many games. And I don't think it was too much blame can be placed on him. I think it's just the way things go when you've got a very, very competitive squad. But I think when we consider what he'd done in the Blackburn shirt, I think he was brilliant. I think he was very, very positive, and it wouldn't have been too much of a surprise if he remained at Brighton after his Blackburn spell, because he did show that he was a level above at times. So now at Birmingham City, obviously they do need that sort of attacking spark. He's somebody that very, very positive on the ball. He's brave. He's technically very good. And he's someone that I'm sure will provide a lot of goals for Birmingham. And once they sort of get out their difficulty that they're currently in, I'm sure he'll become a real integral part of sort of their immediate future. And I think Reda Kadra is the kind of player that will get bums off seats, and I think very, very exciting. But Cameron Archer again just picked it for me. My third place goes to Christ Tihi from Wigan. I think watching him play on Saturday is probably why I've picked it, because I saw him on Saturday, and he was, Wigan, it's a team that are low on confidence at the moment, but he was a player that was very brave in possession. He broke up play. he was sort of a real thorn in Luton's side, and it's difficult to go in at a club that are struggling and, you know, not just sort of succumb to the negativity. And I think Christy, he was a player that could, you know, with that kind of performance, he could sort of boost the mood around Wigan and get his players around him getting back to their very best. As we say, it's always quite difficult for players, especially young players, to go in and make an impact in a struggling side, and that's exactly what he did. So those three for me so far are the pick of the bunch when it comes to the Championship.
Plaudits then for the Birmingham and the sort of Wigan recruitment teams, but Cameron Archer, the pick of our signings in the Championship so far this month. Next then, Billy, to League One. Who for you is the best third tier signing made this month?
Yeah, again, I found League One probably the most difficult to select, but I have gone for Ipswich Town's Nathan Broadhead. I was shocked when I found out that a League One move was sanctioned. Of course, a real exciting sign, and massive part of why Sunderland done what they did last season. Of course, he had his injury concerns last year, but then went to Wigan and was one of their brightest players. Somebody that offers so much, versatile attacking player that gets at his defenders, got bags of pace. His ability to finish off chances as well. There's just so much to like about Nathan Broadhead, and at League One level in a team that are fighting for automatic promotion. I think both Sheffield Wednesday and Plymouth would have been slightly apprehensive when they saw that transfer go through. And ultimately, I think Broadhead is somebody that can play a massive part in the here and now, and should Ipswich go and get promoted, I think he's somebody that can then go and play a massive part in the Championship. I do. I've always liked Broadhead and what he does bring to a game of football, and as well as sort of his technical ability he's also really intelligent. He anticipates things really well, and, you know, might not be too many opportunities that you do get Freddie Ladapo or George Hurst and alongside Nathan Broadhead, but I think if you do, he'd work very well with them. That could mean that Broadhead could play on the left or the right, just behind the striker and cause problems. But I think ultimately there's so many options now within that Ipswich attack, and I know that they're in a bit of a difficult space at the moment, but after their recruitment and, you know, after they get out of this difficult patch, I'm sure they'll be firing again, and I think Broadhead will be a big part as to why. Yeah,
certainly. 13 goals in 27 games for Sunderland last season, and some massive ones, you know, during, I think, a slightly dry run in what was an impressive season for Ross Stewart. Broadhead came up with a string of sort of, I think it was 5 or 6 in a row that really sort of pushed them into the top 6, and Ipswich will hope he can have that impact as well. For them, 5 in 22 for Wigan, and as you say, what was a really struggling team. So I think the reported fee from Everton's 1.5 million, and for a 24-year-old with a big future, that looks a fantastic bit of business from Ipswich, you have to say. Let's move on to the two players that pushed him closest then, Billy. Who else impressed you in League One?
Yeah, I've got the Plymouth duo here of Jay Matete and Callum Wright. Callum Wright just slightly ahead, just because I think you think back to there was a lot of Championship interest in him. Went to Blackpool, showed positive signs in stages, but didn't really get the game time to really go and assure himself and to push himself into that starting 11. Again, when a League One move came about, I was surprised given the ability he's got, but I think that's credit to Plymouth, the way they recruit, the pretty much everything about that club at the moment, because they are sort of leading example both on and off the field. Callum Wright again represents a real option that can do something in the here and now, and someone that could go and play his part in the Championship with Plymouth and really set the stage alight, because I think he's one of those players that again sees the game quicker than most. He's sort of made an instant impact already. Against Cheltenham the other day, he was according to reports he was very good. I think Plymouth Live gave him an 8.5 rating, and that's incredible to come in and do that on your debut. You look at the attacking options Plymouth now have, and it's going to be difficult for these individuals to continue playing. But I think looking at the players there, Wright is that kind of guy that will be one of the first names on the team sheet if he can sort of continue performances like he did at the weekend. And looking at Jay Matete as well, again, I think it was his home debut. Played very, very well. He's full of energy. He's tenacious off the ball, full of desire, but he's also technically very, very gifted. And whilst he wasn't getting too much game at Sunderland, and I think it's the sort of the perfect loan move to go at the top end of League One, be a part of something, and then see where his future lies. Because if he can go and secure promotion with Plymouth, I'm sure they might inquire about his permanent services. But yeah, two very good players, and admittedly, if I was to extend this to 5 players, there'd be another 2 Ipswich players. I think Ipswich and Plymouth have just recruited brilliantly, and it looks like it's very, very important too, because Sheffield Wednesday just look brilliant at the moment.
Yeah, as you say, Wednesday certainly hitting their straps, and that could make the likes of Jay Matete, Callum Wright, and Nathan Broadhead all the more important as the season wears on. That battle for the top 2 certainly going to be really exciting in League One. We shift our attention, Billy, then finally to League Two. Which signings stood out for you?
I think ultimately, and first place for me has to be Jake Forster-Caskey. Again, I was very, very surprised when I saw that he dropped down to League Two. A player that technically is excellent, and I think Stevenage, when they lost Arthur Reed, they sort of lost a left-footed, classy option. And I think with Forster-Caskey coming in, he's a real creative type. He's somebody that can carve chances out of nothing, but he's also somebody that works relentlessly out of possession, something that will be desired under Steve Evans. He's somebody that understands the system well. And then potentially next to Alex Gilbey again, those two have performed very, very well together at Cheltenham before. And I think having those two together could be the difference as Stevenage look to win the league now. They've got themselves to a position where, if they don't get automatic promotion, it'll be a sort of disaster. And this January transfer window has sort of proven that as well. It's close to including Darrell Horgan as part of my top 3. Another very, very good signing at League Two level. But for me, Jake Forster-Caskey, somebody that provides something a little bit different in Stevenage midfield, allows them to play through the middle third a little bit more. Stevenage have been very, very successful, been quite direct this season. Doesn't mean that they've just played hoofball, that they've played a lot of good football around the box, but I just think having Forster-Caskey in the side will help them, vary their attacking play that little bit more. And I think as signings come, I think Jake Forster-Caskey at League Two level, regardless of what club it would have been, it would have just been a real good bit of business. And again, Stevenage have recruited really, really well in the summer. And of course, they've started this month of transfer activity very well. I don't think they need to do much more at all, if anything. And yeah, I think Stevenage fans would be very, very excited for, the back end of this season and what could possibly be. Yeah,
I agree with you, certainly. I think you put it really well there. Just a really classy operator for them to be able to bring in the middle of the park. Obviously, he's had some eye-catching seasons at League One and Championship level in the past, and really we think it's probably his injury record that's forced him to drop down to League Two. But important to remember as well, Billy, he's only 28. It seems like he's been around for so long now. I think he sort of emerged quite young on the scene at Brighton, but he is only 28. They've obviously got him permanently, and we touched upon this in the sort of League One and the Championship sections of the show. I guess one of the things that's really exciting is, it's a bit of forward thinking from Stevenage, in the sense that the Forster-Caskey signing isn't just one to ensure they sort of secure that promotion. He's a player that once they're in League One, really shouldn't struggle with being at that level, should he?
That's exactly that. They've got a lot of players that this season that they've recruited that not only have they played their part, in the here and now, that they could go on and do a very good job in the higher division. I think that's critically important. But you've seen sort of the clubs that have done that well. You know, Port Vale, they were sort of in a similar position to Stevenage, where they got promoted last season and had those individuals that could carry them. Sort of the likes of Exeter as well. I think being in sort of the luxurious position that Stevenage are in now, they've got the time to think about next season. And I know, you know, things can turn, and you know, I don't want to twist things for Stevenage, because they're of course having a very good season. It doesn't mean that the rest of the campaign will sort of fall the way it's been going so far, but they can start to forward think. They've got such a cushion from fourth place that it would be disastrous if they weren't to get promotion. And you sort of look at the players in the squad at the moment, they've got that good balance of players that have played at a higher level. They've got good sort of more youthful options coming through. But they've also got the players that sort of in between the ages of 26 and 28 who are sort of hitting their peak, and you know that Stevenage have been a level above the majority of their opponents this season, and I don't see too many reasons why they can't go, you know, into the higher division and do something similar, where they, you know, of course, I'm not saying they'll go and win back-to-back promotions, but be comfortable. Sorry, I think they could be comfortable given the sort of personnel that they've got at the moment.
Yeah, certainly a really exciting addition from Stevenage, and exciting to see what the future holds for them under Steve Evans. Which other two players push Jake Forster Kasky close then, Billy?
Yeah, I mentioned at the start when it came to criteria, I spoke about the need of addressing certain areas, and Gillingham, given sort of their dismal attacking record this season, adding a player as gifted and as much of a goal scorer as he is as Tom Nichols has to be mentioned, because you know he's made that instant impact as well. He's already scored. He's already got an assist. He's already left a mark on this Gillingham side, who have really struggled at the start of this campaign. And you know, Gillingham, of course, this new buzz around the club given sort of the off-field changes. I think Tom Nichols is somebody that could continue firing them, not just away from a relegation battle, but up the table as well. A very good addition. Again, at a very good age, 29. So there's you know, coming to the peak of his career. I think he's a player that doesn't just offer that goal scoring presence. He links the play very well. He's very intelligent, and just a really good addition, and somebody that of course has made that impact already, and somebody that can continue making a real impact. And going on to my second pick, I think this sort of notion of me not believing that players have dropped down to the level has been sort of a constant here. And Dara Costello, watching him at the start of the season for Burnley, brilliant talent. And I do understand that since an injury, they've gone on and added real quality in wide areas. And I did expect him to perhaps go out on loan to maybe League One, top end of League One. But to go to Bradford in League Two, I think that's a real coup. A player that I watched him at the start of the season against Luton, and he gave us constant problems. And I just thought, you know, he's the kind of player that could become a regular at Burnley. And to the fact that he's now in League Two, and after Tyreek Wright's departed, I think, you know, as good as Tyreek Wright was, this is a really exciting opportunity for Bradford to continue causing chaos in the wide positions, because that's where their strength is. So yeah, I think Costello is a really exciting addition. The reason I didn't have him as my number one pick is the fact that he's recently recovered from a knee injury. So I don't know how he'll fare up initially, but I think in terms of Bradford, they're going to be wanting to secure promotion. I think Costello is a real important player that could help them do that.
a reminder then of the three best EFL signings so far this month, as per this show. Cameron Archer signed, of course, for Middlesbrough on loan from Aston Villa in the Championship. Ipswich Town arrival Nathan Broadhead joining permanently from Everton was the pick for League One. And in League Two, Jake Forster-Caskey, a permanent move from Charlton Athletic to Stevenage. But Billy feels that he could have a real impact this season and beyond. Well, Billy, just before we go then, as tough as it was for you to slim it down to only three, I'm now going to ask you to pick out for you, the best signing of those three.
Yeah, very, very difficult. As I said, it was difficult enough narrowing it to three than picking my selection from each league. I think, naturally this becomes even harder. But I'm going to go Nathan Broadhead. I know, of course, there was, I don't want to say hefty fee because I think he's completely worth what was paid. But I think given what he can give this Ipswich team in the here and now, and the fact that he's gained championship experience, he's gained championship experience being one of the most important players at Wigan. So I think he's somebody that doesn't necessarily have to do too much. I think if he can continue the performances he has displayed at Wigan, I think he'll be a player that will make a phenomenal impact at League One level. And, then you start thinking about next year, naturally, Ipswich will be find it difficult, you'd think, to stay in the division. I think Nathan Broadhead's somebody that could help fire them away from any trouble, and ultimately somebody that could then real resale value. I think Premier League clubs, I don't think it's too big of a stretch to say that the Premier League clubs would have him on his radar if he can go to the Championship and return a level of performance he has done previously.
Yeah, certainly it's hard to argue with Nathan Broadhead, a player that we've seen score goals in a successful League One promotion push before, joining a team that really need a consistent goal scorer. So certainly he's a player that Ipswich fans would rightly be excited about, and I'm sure plenty are. Well, that is everything from myself and Billy today. But Football League TV will be back on your screens tomorrow with the EFL Transfer Zone. So please do look out for it then. But just leaves me to say thanks, Billy, and thanks everyone for watching.